Greetings, Carl.
Hello, Michael. What's happening?
What's happening? We're pretty much wrapping up conference season, and the one question I keep hearing over and over the past couple of weeks, I guess almost 2 months of conference season, is we haven't seen the blue couch in a while.
That's really
Carl
funny.
has this like new backdrop set up,
Yeah,
lovely, neutral. You have a beautiful camera. I'm very jealous,
yeah. My phone.
but the couch is gone.
I know it's
What?
upstairs. It's upstairs. We've been holding these retreats at the house. It's funny you should mention this because we've been holding these retreats for advisors at the house. And the one we did in that just wrapped up in May, the people who came to the retreat demanded that we bring the couch down. So two people sat on the couch for the day and a half retreat. So
So
I'm
how,
gonna have to
how
bring it. I'll bring it
Uh,
down here.
how does your like wife feel that people like
She
demand
she
that the
she's
couch come?
she's
Stranger
totally.
stranger sat on her couch because for those who don't know, like it is Corey's couch. It is
Yeah,
not.
there's a serious story. It's not her couch anymore because I took it to Vegas and 500 people sat on it. When I brought it home, she's like, "Wait, how many people sat on the couch? This is now your couch." So Kitces and Carl has to pay for that couch now because Corey wants a new one. But she's part of the retreats. So when we brought it down, all the other women that were there at the retreat were just like, they just looked at her like, "Did he really take this to Vegas?" I'm like, "Yeah, he took this to Vegas." So yeah, for those of you who don't know what we're talking about, there's this really you'll have to just go find it now. But there's this story. My wife made me haul this blue couch all over the world. We bought it in New Zealand. We took it to London. It became my backdrop. And Michael started saying, "Isn't that a beautiful blue Kitsis blue couch?" I was like, "It is not Kitsis blue." And then
Close.
everybody
It's
started commenting.
close.
Everybody started commenting on the couch. I was really grumpy about the need to haul this couch all over the world. And then as we got emails, I had to read them to my wife, and she was just like, "I told you." So the blue couch has become a thing. In fact, Michael, I'm thinking of starting a little fund called Blue Couch Capital, and we'll talk about that another day. But I just got a note from an advisor who wants to help with Blue Couch Capital, so we'll see what happens.
Wow.
A
Okay.
little, a little company that funds RIAs or something. I don't know, something fun.
Okay. All right. More to be heard about Blue Couch Capital.
Yeah, that's right.
So
Trademarked.
trademark. So for today's um episode, I wanted to talk a little about interesting conversation I've been having over the past few weeks with a um advisor friends. We're trying to keep people anonymous, like we'll call him Adam. uh Adam has a really successful I don't know what to call, like a practice. It is him plus I think one or two advisors and one or two admin team, a million or two of revenue. I think it's closer to two. So pretty darn good margins when there's like five of you pushing $2 million of revenue. And he's got a pretty comfortable practice around uh, good margins, not working a ton of hours, has built a pretty good pipeline into his niche. So he's got like a really good steady flow of clients coming in,
Mm.
and actually wants to like do some additional things back to his community. Like now that the business is in a good place, he wants to do some other like membership style models to reach more of his community. And I maybe this is just like me and how my business brain works when I look at a practice like this. I'm going to be like really curious for your thoughts around this. I look at this practice and I see you've got nice high margins. You're working, I'll call it lifestyle hours. I don't mean that in the pejorative way. I mean that in the like, kudos, you got the practice to the point where you can like live a very comfortable life and have time for a lot of time for family and kids and hobbies and whatever else it is that you want. Um, but he's still growing pretty fast.
Mm.
And ironically, if like the new things he's doing actually works, he's going to grow faster. He's not really doing it to amp up the revenue, I think, but he has a tendency to build things that work out. So like it might accidentally work. And you know, he's in a really happy place and feeling and looking at it. And I look at this and think it doesn't sustain this way. Like if you keep growing fast, you can't keep growing fast and keep the hours down and the margins high. Because at some point, like if you don't want to load up your own clients, you need more advisors. And if you're going to hire more advisors, that starts to pressure your margins. And if you need more advisors and more support staff because you have more advisors to support, you need a little bit more staff. And then at some point you need like an operations manager to manage all the people because the firm's getting bigger. And like to some extent, that's just the natural growth of practices. But I kind of found this dynamic to me that was emerging that, you know, if I sort of think of this like triangle of high margins, lifestyle hours, grow fast, or like launch all the things you want to launch if you're the like fast creator type. You can design a practice that does any two of those well, but I don't know if it's realistic to expect all three. And I worry it's even dangerous to try for all three, because if that doesn't actually work, then you're going to have some challenges later. And
yeah, there's an old saying in the bike, I think it's in the mountain bike world. Strong, light, cheap. Pick two.
yeah.
Right. So you can have a strong and light bike, but it's going to cost you some money.
Mm-hmm.
You can have a light, cheap bike, but it won't be very strong. Like, yeah, pick two.
Yeah.
I like that.
I feel like there's a similar thing. Like, look, you could run a high margin lifestyle hour practice. Like, just don't add very many clients. If you're not growing that much, things get pretty stable. Clients mostly get into maintenance mode. Your team gets well trained. Like, it runs really smoothly. You can run a high margin, fast growth firm, make a lot of money and grow really fast, but you're going to work a lot of hours. Like, you're the lifestyle hours thing ain't going to hold.
Mm-hmm.
Or you can run a practice that is, which one's left? Like, that's growing fast and you're still working lifestyle hours, but you're going to have to hire a lot more people to replace the things that you're not doing in the business, and your margins aren't going to hold.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to necessarily be a negative thing, right? You know, in this business, even firms that don't have the highest of margins make some pretty good money when your practice gets to a critical mass of revenue and clients. So, you know, none of these have to be bad scenarios. And to be fair, for a lot of advisors I know, they don't even have two, they have one. I'm growing fast, but my margins suck and I'm working a million hours. I'm getting high margins, but I'm still not growing that fast and it's chewing up a lot of my time. So even getting 2 out of 3 is actually pretty good.
Yeah.
And I think is something to aspire to, and maybe even a challenge for advisors. Like, if you only have one of the three, you might need to make some changes to your practice. There may be some opportunities for improvement to the practice. But if you've got 2 out of 3 and you're trying to get to 3 out of 3, I really question whether it holds. If only because in the purest sense, if you've really got a fast growth firm, and when I talk fast growth, I'm talking about numbers like 40% growth.
Yeah.
If you've got 40% growth, the business doubles in less than 2 years, just like rule of 72 compounding. And we're a service business. If you double your business in 2 years, you will double your headcount. You pretty much have to. Just, you need people to do the things for the clients that get served. Like, that's the reality of the business. You can get a little bit of incremental improvement with tech and systems and process, but you want to double a firm, you basically have to double its headcount in a service business. And if you double your headcount every 2 years, I'm sorry, but like, working limited hours and having high margins, you can't stack both of those when you're adding that many people that quickly. Especially, like, maybe you can do it once over 2 years, but then the second 2 years, you double again, and now you're 4x the size.
Yeah.
and things just get a little harder and more complex, or a lot, potentially a lot harder and a lot more complex.
Hmm.
I guess I'm even curious out the gate. Does that ring true to you? Do you see that? Do you not buy that principle?
No, it totally does. I just, my questions are always around um why, and like intention,
Yeah.
and design. So, like, it's so hard. There's this Lao Tzu quote that has been chasing me around for more than a decade. Be who you really are and go the whole way. And I think it's really hard to figure out who you really are, and what you really want as a business. And and that, maybe that sounds some sort of like drum circle-y thing, but it's not. Like, it's just really hard to figure out what you want, because there's all the cool kids telling you what you want. There's growth is always the answer. There's the startup culture. There's only the paranoid survive. There's like all these things, grow, grow, grow. Really? Is that what you really want? And so they're like just intentionally asking the question. And then the other thing I think is important is that then you design around what you think you want. And so, and I can't, I've tried to find the source of this. I heard somebody say business design is lifestyle design, right? The way you design your business, they didn't say this part, but the way you design your business is how you're going to design your life. Like, it's going to bleed over. And then I love, John Bowen used to say, that often I mean, if you kind of stick around for 10 years, you'll be successful, but what he said was, often we're successful by accident. Now let's start being, he would say the successful by accident part. And then I think his implication, and I can't remember exactly how he would say it, would be like, let's now be intentional
Oh, you were
about,
successful by accident. You just did a bunch of things and God bless it turned out to work. Now let's be intentional about what you want it to be.
yeah, and let's be intentional about what you want it to be, and and all answers are okay. And really pointing to your thing, two out of the three answers are okay. Oh, sorry. The last thing I was thinking of was trade-offs the whole time you were talking about. Like, this is not a trade-off free decision. It's not possible, which is how you've kind of structured this framework around pick any two, is you don't get to pick three. It's not an option. And so you're going to be thinking, I think, like intention, design, and trade-offs is what I was thinking as you were talking.
Yeah. I've found this phenomenon over the past few years where I've kind of started grouping advisory firms into uh, sort of styles about how the firm owner, how the founder runs the practice.
Hmm.
And I'm realizing, even as I'm talking about this pick two, that like it actually maps surprisingly well. I'm like literally realizing it live as we're having the conversation here.
That's
So
what we do here. That's what we do. Make space for insights for Michael.
I
That's the
appreciate
whole
that, Carl.
that's the whole goal.
So I framed firms for a couple of years in kind of three dimensions. The first I call the lifestyle firms. Like, this is the classic, like uh what's the saying? I don't live to work, I work to live. Like, the
Mhm.
practice serves me to create a certain kind of income and lifestyle that I want to live. And that's one segment of advisors. And there's a second group that I call the enterprise builders.
Hmm.
They like building businesses and creating enterprise value, right? Just they're driven to be business builders. They do tend to spend more hours in the business because it's actually like fun and motivating for them, and they like to build big businesses. There's a third group that I find that I've taken to calling the boutiques. They tend to be very mission and purpose driven. It kind
Mhm.
of it maps to Bo Burlingham's Small Giants, if you've ever, for anyone who's ever read that
Mhm.
book. where, you know, their wonderful tagline is businesses that choose to be great instead of big.
Hmm.
Now, the irony in the small giants world and per the book is sometimes businesses that choose to be great and not big turn out to become pretty big and sizable. They get there over time because they serve a community with a strong passion and focus. And if you do that for enough years with compounding, it still actually turns out to be pretty big. But they don't optimize for enterprise value the way enterprise builders do. They optimize for how best can I serve my community in a meaningful and positive way. And if I do that repeatedly over time, it turns out that my business grows. But what strikes me when I kind of look at these combinations are, you know, lifestyle firms really do end up being firms that by and large, like they prioritize the hours and the margins and downplay the grow fast. They're actually willing to say, I've got enough clients. I
Hmm.
just really don't want to add any more. Like I'm good. Or like maybe I'll add one to replace the one that leaves. Very common for lifestyle practices. Like your bus gets full. And just like this is how many clients I want to serve. It makes me the money I want. I literally don't need more. Why would I add more? So they live the margins, the hours, and they sacrifice the growth. The enterprise builders tend to do their pick two is the growth and the margins. I want to run a strong growth firm that has good profitability because that maximizes my enterprise value. And, you know, I kind of work a lot of hours in order to do that. A lot of enterprise builders, particularly during the buildy phase, like they work long hours. This is your quintessential long hour working CEO building a business with significant enterprise value. And then there's this third group of the boutique where you may be enjoying the hours and the growth, but it comes at the cost of margins.
Hmm.
Because at some point, if you want to keep building the thing bigger that you're trying to build, it might not be quite as profitable. It can still be very profitable and do well, but it might not be as profitable. And
Hmm.
and the challenge I feel like I see most often is for those advisors that are building boutique style firms. You know, I've got a vision of who I want to serve. I'm serving them really well. It's going so well. More of them keep coming. I'm getting referrals. I'm getting known in my community. The business is growing. It's going really well. Lots of opportunities coming. This is exactly who I wanted to serve and how I wanted to do it. So this is amazing. And then it starts growing faster than they wanted or realized. And the only way you manage that is to slow down the growth. And if what you're doing is driven to serve people with a purpose and a mission, the last possible thing you want to do is start telling people no and slowing it down.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I almost feel it's this like
Hmm.
successful boutique trap that the thing we're doing that's working so well can actually work too well and undermine the rest of it if you
Hmm.
don't manage the growth. And I guess that's essentially my challenge to this and sort of my conversation with Adam was, you know, I love this thing that you're creating and how well it's growing, but I think you're underestimating like what you're doing is working. And if it actually keeps working, the compounding growth is going to put a lot of pressure on you soon.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's
Isn't
working. So who wants to
that's,
slow that down?
yeah. It's so interesting. Is this a is this a younger cat problem?
Um, I don't know. Define young. My frame of reference has changed now that I've been doing
I
this for
know.
24
But
years.
is there something that happens? And I feel like there's something, and maybe age isn't the right metric, but there's something that happens when you start questioning what you really want to build, like
Yeah.
and what really matters to you, and what you really like to do, and the intersection of it's just like a massive series of experiments, of course. Like there's nothing you can do to sit down and
Such
find this out.
such is life, right?
Yeah, and if you, I wish I would have been more thoughtful about those experiments earlier on if somebody had just explained it to me. But what do I want to do? What am I uniquely good at? Of course, what I make money at. That's those three that show up, or three or four that show up in the whatever that great book is, the Japanese book. I can't remember. Ikigai.
Yeah.
It's like, what am I uniquely good at? What do I get paid well to do? What gives me energy? I think there seems, and I've been surprised at the number of conversations I've had lately where people are like, "This isn't what I wanted to build." You know what I mean? Like and
Yeah.
I'm thinking all across, like financial advisors. I remember having this discussion a lot 2 years ago with builders and contractors. You know, they were like, I got my dreams all came true, and I'm miserable."
Yeah.
You know, right out of like when the building world went crazy, at least in our part of the world. Like I got all my dreams came true, and I'm miserable. It's just interesting because yeah, and I think it's just such a fascinating problem of okay, well, what's your intention? What is it that you really want to build? What do you think? You know, it's cute that you think you know. So it'd be more like, what do you think you want to build? And then how would you design it if you, and these are all fine answers. How would you design it if you were being intentional about it? Um, and then what trade-offs are you willing to make out
Yeah.
of all the trade-offs you pointed to? And if one of those trade-offs is what you ended with there was, but it's growing really fast, who wants to slow that down? One of those trade-offs may be I need to put the brakes on this thing
Yeah.
because I'm not willing to trade my life or my time at home or whatever else for
Yeah.
that. I got to put the brakes on this thing. But the point is, and we've got to be careful in our industry. And I'm certainly been super guilty of this in the past. I'm trying to get better about it, believe it or not, that there's no right answer necessarily. Even as I say that, I believe it, but there's no, that all answers can be okay. It just needs to be intentional.
I mean, that to me in part is sort of the framing of like pick two. You get to pick which two.
Yeah.
No one's telling you which two to pick. All of them work. All the combinations work and can make things that are successful and meaningful and economically rewarding. Some might have slightly different financial implications than others, but uh you know, candidly, like most advisor jobs once established over time in a practice, like the math is pretty good with any of them. Uh but to me, like the striking part, if you only have if you're only getting one, you've got an opportunity to get to two.
Right.
If you've got two, you can pick which two, but be wary going for all three. And again, this doesn't mean that you can't grow. Like I really frame this in the frame of it's what happens when you try to grow, either grow fast or like launch and do a lot of the things in your head. If you're more of a proverbial shiny object person, you like building more new things. Uh, Firms that are growing at 15% can keep plowing along with steady growth for a long, long time to come. It moves at a manageable enough pace you can develop team and work up to it. I'm really talking about a realm where the revenue of the business is growing 30 or 40% or more and does it for a number of years in a row. I find that it's when things start going a little wonky because now you're doubling every 2 to 3 years at 30 to 40% growth rates. And that's just a lot of growth. At some point, it's just a lot of people. Because at the end of the day, we're a service business. You want to 2x or 4x your business, you're going to 2 to 4x your headcount.
Yeah. Yeah. And Christy Raines, one of my favorite financial planners, talks about which problem do you want to have? Like
Yeah,
it's not an option to have no problem.
right.
Which problem do you want to have? Which I think is really, and problems in that sense, I like to think of problems in that sense as just puzzles. Like which things do you want to have to deal with and solve and work on? It's not problem like, oh no, terrible. Just which problem do you want to have? So, and I think John Bowen's like successful by accident. Let's just turn that around and be like, let's be thoughtful. The thing I'm really trying to point out here is, um, if something's causing you pain repeatedly, it might be a good idea to look at it and figure out if you still want to make that trade-off.
Yep.
But just running around expecting the pain to go away, like living it, like building a business unexamined is might be something we want to consider changing.
Should we like calling back to a life? What is it? A life unexamined is not worth living. A practice unexamined is not worth running.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and then there's another great, I think it's a Freud quote, which was, "Until we make the unconscious conscious,
Yeah.
it'll run our lives, and we'll call it fate." And I think this is the same thing. Until we make these trade-offs explicit, like out in the open, we're thinking about them. They're going to run our lives. They're going to impact our families. They're going to impact our health. And we're just going to call it like business. It's just work. Oh, it's just work. And until we say, wait. Actually, there's some trade-offs here. I've got some choice here. I can design something I want. And let's just be intentional about that.
And I guess I'll put it out to folks who are listening as well. Like if you think my pick two is off base, I don't know, because you got one and you don't even see a path to two, or because you're doing all three and you believe you can really keep doing it sustainably this way, send us a message. Questions at kitces.com really does come into my inbox. If you think we're off base, let us know. But the more I look at firms, the more I see this pick two phenomenon crop up. And again, they're all good things, but if you've only got one, let's see if we can get you to two. And if you've got two, just be clear and intentional about which two you're trying to solve for.
Amen to that.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Carl.
Yeah. Cheers, Michael.